Does life imitate art, or does art imitate life? That's the question. Back in the 1950s and 60s, part of the great excitement of that period was that soon there would be a moon landing. Soon there would be unlimited cheap nuclear energy. In 1969, the moon landing happened. There were several other moon landings that came after, but the cheap nuclear energy never happened. It was 20 years later it was supposed to happen. In 1970 it was supposed to happen in 1990. In 1990, cheap nuclear energy was supposed to happen in 2010. In 2010, it was supposed to happen in 20 years. In 20 years. Today, it's still 20 years in horizon. But this year, something different happened. We had cheap nuclear energy on film. The Dark Knight Rises, Batman. All Gotham was held in thrall by a bomb. You see, the cheap nuclear reactor was converted into a nuclear bomb. And though this was the movies and everything worked out fine, it left you with the distinct impression that nobody would want a nuclear power in there or anywhere near their city if it could be turned into a bomb. That's art imitating life, because that's the life as we know it, and that's the truth as we know it. But what would happen if, in fact, the history were exactly wrong? What would happen if, in fact, the history were something entirely different, and art did not imitate life, because the life was, the actual true life was actually something very different? Well, this is something that a nuclear engineer working for NASA, Kirk Sorensen, discovered in 2000. He was looking around for the solution to how to create an environment on the moon. That's what NASA people do, and they needed a power plant to do it. It had to be nuclear power, because something like solar or wind wouldn't work. So he was looking in the old books that went back 40 and 50 years ago, and he suddenly discovered something astounding. He discovered that, in fact, a nuclear reactor had been discovered. A nuclear reactor that could do absolutely everything promised. It had not only been discovered, it had been prototyped, and it had run for 4 years, from 1966 to 1970. The man who ran it was Alvin Weinberger, who was head of the Oak Ridge Laboratories. Alvin Weinberg, in fact, was the inventor of today's light water reactor. Think about that for a second. The man who held the light water reactor, held the patents on the light water reactor, also developed thorium reactors, and so the thorium reactors were orders of magnitude cheaper. They did not have any possibility of being converted into a nuclear weapon. They couldn't melt down. The nuclear waste could be reused. They were the perfect solution. They were the perfect future that everyone had been talking about, and they were abandoned and mothballed and thrown away. Why? Well, because the U.S. military at the time was interested in what's called dual use. They wanted nuclear reactors that could be used not only to produce clean energy, but they could also be turned into a bomb. Well, so that leaves us the question of, how does life imitate art? Well, interestingly, 2 years ago, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett got together and produced and inspired America's billionaires to get together and do something called the Giving Pledge. Now, last year when they got together, they wanted to have something that had more impact. It's not all that easy to give away money effectively. You can throw your money away, but wouldn't it be nice to do something that was really effective? I mean, that really had an impact. This year they came up with the idea, in fact, that there could be something called impact investing. They asked, the interesting question is, what is the most important technology that needs to be developed in the next 10 years? Well, think about that for a moment. What is the most important technology that needs to be invented in the next 10 years? As it happens, arguably the world's greatest strategic technology, Bill Gates, has weighed in on this question. He has said, well, it needs to be something that will reduce the cost of energy, just like we were promised in the 1950s and 60s. And it will, of course, come from a nuclear reactor. He himself is working on a project called TerraPower, which is a nuclear reactor, but they won't even prototype that for 10 years. So he's already said that, well, okay, of course, there needs to be 10 more designs for nuclear power. So the answer to the question of America's billionaires is that they should go invest their money in thorium nuclear reactors. There's two of them right now, two companies. One of them is Flybe, and the other one is Transatomic Power. And both of these companies will be able to leverage two programs that are done by the government. One of them is the U.S. Defense Department right now. It's interested in nuclear power, but in a different way. They want to get off the grid. It's become too vulnerable. So they want to be able to put a portable nuclear power plant on all their bases anywhere. The second one is the U.S. Energy Department. They are now engaged in thorium research, so that both companies, Flybe and Transatomic Power, will be able to leverage the efforts of the Defense Department and the Department of Energy. And the Defense Department expenditures will buy their prototype. The prototype is suggested by American scientists to come out. Will take about 5 years, and it'll cost about $1 billion. This is something that billionaires can do. The question is, will they go see Batman? Will they be like Bruce Wayne? If you happen to run into a billionaire anytime in the next month or two, go tell them to go see Batman, The Dark Knight Rises, and see if life does not imitate art. Thank you.